The following program is made possible by Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
The economy is booming, and all over the business world, male executives' careers are imploding. We talked to two leading women in our local economy about this and more. The game is business. The game is on. In the midst of an unprecedented economic boom, how is our economy changing and who is being left behind? And what will be the impact of the startling revelations about the male misconduct in the workplace? We address both of these matters and we're joined by Rosanne Foust, President and CEO of the San Mateo County Economic Development Association, the oldest and leading business association in the county. Thank you for being here. And Kitty Lopez, Executive Director of First 5 San Mateo County, which allocates money from a 50-cent tobacco tax to programs dedicated to children ages up to 5 years. First 5 spends about $7 million a year, is that about right, on programs for more than 3,600 families. Services from providing car seats to helping parents prepare their kids for school. Thank you both for being here. I really want to focus on what's happened to the San Mateo economy. How has it changed? You know, it used to be, I once described it in a column as a hotbed of social rest. It used to be a bedroom community to major job centers. And now it appears that that's not true anymore, and that this county is a major employer in and of itself. It has major job centers. Is that accurate, Rosanne?
It is, and actually I think you have to look at San Mateo County as a very diversified economy, because we do have the new tech companies, but we also have San Francisco Airport, which is one of the largest employers in the county. We have the community college district, we have major medical institutions. So yes, we have tech here for sure now, but we also have existing industries that have been around a long time.
Now, a lot of the people you deal with, correct me if I'm wrong, are more than likely in the service industry because they need this level of help. How is, first of all, is that correct? And second of all, how is the changing economy affecting those folks?
Well, First 5 serves low-income people in the county, but it also serves middle income and teachers. I mean, we're trying to help all children get the best start in life. Yeah. And I think, you know, why Rosanne talked about booming tech industry, I mean, I think there still is a dominant service industry, and teachers are here and other professions that are helping to support the economy.
Yeah. So you characterize the economy here as diversified. How is that different from what it was, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago?
It was diversified, but in a different way. So you had more activity with, I would say, with trucking, with industrial, with more manufacturing that would happen in some of our communities. I mean, think about South San Francisco, how it moved from a steel,
heavy industry, cement, steel, yeah.
Exactly, to biotech now. I mean, it is literally the home of biotech. Mm-hmm. So if you think about that, there's been a shift.
So we have job centers. Where are they, and what kind of businesses are they? Or do we? Or when you say it's diversified, is it also diversified geographically, you think, Kitty?
Well, I think because it's so expensive to live here, actually people, a lot of low-income families are moving out of the area, and they're moving farther east. Or they have overcrowded housing, or they're sleeping on somebody's couch. I mean, I think there are a lot of living conditions that mimic San Francisco, although you don't see it like you would in an urban setting.
Yeah.
And there are 7 cities in San Mateo County that actually have job openings numbering in the thousands.
Really?
And yes, so South San Francisco, San Mateo, Redwood City, Foster City, Burlingame, San Bruno, and Menlo Park.
What kind of jobs are those, though?
There is a variety of jobs. So we pull off from Help Wanted online, and there are jobs ranging from software developers to registered nurses to medical scientists and first-line supervisors of food preparation, so that's where you get into another industry, network and computer systems administrators, and then office administration is growing. So, I mean, with 7 cities and the job opportunities are numbering in the thousands,
So that's a more critical, that makes what First Five is doing even more critical, because these are all jobs that require an education and require specialized training.
Right, and families who have children, it's going to require some industry taking care of the children. So childcare is a huge issue, and Rosanne and I have talked about that before. 11,000 spaces are needed in our county for young infants and toddlers and preschoolers. Yeah. There's not enough space.
One of the things that struck me is that we have companies that are growing in place in this county, which my impression is that's a new phenomenon, that companies historically, with some notable exceptions, but got to a certain size and then moved somewhere else where the land was cheaper or where employees were cheaper. Mm-hmm. Is that accurate? Are companies growing in place more here than they used to, and if so, why?
I think you are seeing more companies growing in place. I mean, I think about the stat that Kitty just gave, 11,000 childcare slots that are needed. When I moved here 23 years ago, childcare was a huge priority for me. And Electronic Arts had just opened in Redwood City, and they decided not to open a childcare center initially. But as their employees aged and they were having children, they set up a childcare center in-house. So those are the changes that we're having. Oracle, again, similar situation. They bought into the Redwood Shores Child Care Center, so companies are thinking more about it. I mean, you hear Facebook growing in place. Google has major investments in San Mateo County. The airport actually has grown from the early 2000s to what it is today. I mean, the growth of the San Francisco airport, the number of airlines, the number of jobs available, the
just
hotels.
The number of terminals. I mean,
yes.
There's more terminals in there.
Amazing.
Well, and that's why I think we have to think of these issues. They're interrelated. Yes. Transportation and housing, we could spend a whole show on that, but housing, childcare, supporting family employment, they're all interrelated in the county.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is this healthy? I mean, when this first started, everybody was excited. We're someplace now. We've got these companies coming here. We're a more dynamic economy than we used to be. But you start to see people now who are uneasy about what's happening. Has it reached an unhealthy stage?
I think people like Kitty and I, and you, Mark, with the involvement that you have outside of doing the game, we're all trying to work on these issues because we don't want it to reach the tipping point of unhealthy. Mm-hmm. When I have conversations with people about housing, I mean, our unemployment in San Mateo County is about 2.3%. The city with the highest unemployment in San Mateo County, East Palo Alto, is only at 3.9%. I mean, that's virtually full employment anywhere else in the country. So I think what we're trying to tackle is the issues of housing, childcare, job training, all the things that isn't going to make this not the desirable place you want to live.
Yeah.
And yet
let me stop you there. We're going to take a quick break, but I want you to answer that question when we get back. Kitty Lopez, Rosanne Foust, stick around, and you stick around. We'll be right back.
It's been over 150 years since Wells Fargo first opened for business. Since then, we've enjoyed your community support, and we're passionate about returning it. Every day, Wells Fargo team members roll up their sleeves and donate their time to organizations and charitable groups throughout the Bay Area. Nationally, we've committed even more. In just the past 2 years alone, we've donated over $70 million to support schools and educational programs. It's a commitment we're proud of. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Welcome back to the game. I'm Mark Simon. We have Rosanne Foust, President and CEO of SAMCETA, and Kitty Lopez, the Executive Director of First Five, which is dedicated to helping families bring children along from the ages of 0 to 5. That's as good a general description as I can come up with. We were talking about whether or not this economy is healthy, and I would think in your case, you're sort of at the front end of some of those issues.
Well, I was just saying at the break that I heard on NPR this week, 1 in 4 people in our counties, Santa Clara and San Mateo, worry about food. So while there's all this prosperity, I think the inequities that exist continue to grow. And as I said, you're not going to see it like you would people in downtown San Francisco, but it exists here. The self-sufficiency standard, that means the amount of money you need to make is $85,000 if you don't get any help from anybody. That would be 5 jobs at minimum wage for a family of 4, two adults and 2 kids.
I'm sorry, 5 jobs? Is that what you said?
5 jobs.
Yeah, so that's for a family to manage. And And so what we have in the case of the one in four you mentioned is that they're likely to be working people. They're not.
Right.
Right. They're often working a couple of jobs just to try and.
Or teachers. Beginning, I looked online. A beginning teacher salary can be $35,000 to $40,000.
Yes.
Those are our teachers. They're educating our children, and it's hard for them to live here.
So we talked at the top of the show about who's being left behind. The unemployment numbers you were citing earlier are spectacular, but if 3% unemployment or 2-point-whatever% unemployment means that people are still not making ends meet.
Well, because wage growth has not kept up.
Right.
Wage growth is less than 2% over the last 5 or 6 years. And that's really where the conversation has to start with the companies. I mean, we all have to dig in, and we need to pay our people more. I mean, there have been discussions at a recent Chamber of Commerce event at the Oracle Conference Center. One of the speakers talked about the concept of a universal basic income. And what do we need to do to make sure that folks in our county aren't left behind? Those statistics are incredibly sobering. 1 in 4 are worried about food. That should not be our norm.
Right.
Yeah. So what do we do? How do we? Not that you're necessarily responsible for solving it, but you're talking about a growing inequity, and that's one of those issues that I know is on the national consciousness is wage inequity, financial inequity. What's the answer? Because is the cost of housing likely to go down? I would think not.
Well, I think you're right. We have to pay people more. I mean, they have to have a living wage. Which is different. That's going to be different than if you're living in the mid part of the country.
Yeah, but isn't that hard on businesses, especially small businesses?
Well, I think you have to have the discussions. I mean, many of our communities, so we have 20 cities in San Mateo County, they're talking about raising the minimum wage beyond what the state has pushed for and raising it earlier. I mean, some of the small businesses I've talked to, the ones that really understand this, they are already paying their employees more. So it's a matter of finding a way and encouraging other businesses and getting them to understand this is a collective problem. This isn't just their problem or a big business problem. It's all our problem. Yeah. But you have to have the conversation, and you have to be willing to put things on the table like a basic income.
Are we at risk of becoming a wealthy enclave where only really people who, million-dollar homes in neighborhoods, that a generation ago those homes were $25,000, $30,000? Are we at risk of becoming a place where only the wealthy can live and service workers would commute in or live in relatively difficult circumstances?
It's already happening. I mean, they say that a child's success is more determined by his or her zip code than anything else. That shouldn't happen here.
I want to shift gears a little bit. When we originally planned to do this show, I wanted to talk about the economy because that's what both of you are engaged in. But you are women executives, and we have to, I think, talk a little bit about Me Too. And why do you think? I mean, we know more about misconduct in the workplace than ever, I guess. We also know it's been going on for a long time. Why is this happening? Why does this happen? What is at the root of basically male executives behaving in a way that's inappropriate at minimum for women in the workplace? Kitty?
You want to start?
It's a painful topic. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, and it has been going on a long time. My hat is off to those women who decided enough is enough and to speak up, because I'm not sure there is one woman out there, us included, that have not been on the receiving end of something at some point in our career. But it is very personal, and it is very painful. So I think talking about it, I love the fact that Time's Person of the Year, so to speak, were the silence breakers. Right. I mean, to me, the conversation's here.
So has it been the nature, you've both been in the workplace for a while, has it been just the nature of the workplace that you're going to have to confront this and find a way to manage it?
Well, I think it's part of our culture, unfortunately. And I mean, I've been fortunate that I've been head of an organization, and I work in a predominantly female-centered business. And so I may not experience the kind of harassment or sexual harassment that others do. I certainly have dealt with it with employees. But I've been thinking this week, I think we have to find a better definition of power, because this is really about power and exerting power and dominance and control. And that's not what it means to be at a high-level position in your company. I mean, it's going to require more than just seeing a sexual harassment video and saying, yes, I checked that off.
Yeah. So why do you think this is happening now?
Well, I think women reached a point where, and I do think it is power related. I think the conversations about pay inequity started about position inequity. How come there's more males in leadership positions? So I think all the conversations
the fact that women make like 80 cents on the dollar compared to men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think since the conversations have started, it's going to continue. I mean, it is. It's on the table now. But I think we have to find a new definition for power. I 100% agree with Kitty.
So what you're saying, it sounds like, is that it is sort of like the natural next step to some of these other issues that have been raised over 20 years, really. I mean, this has been going on for quite a while.
Right, and we see examples in the highest parts of our government. Men behaving and badly and speaking poorly. And so, I mean, I hope that this is a sea change. I hope it's just not a passing kind of thing, because I think we have to deal with these issues and how men are raised, how boys are raised, and girls, you know, that we can have a more level playing field.
Is it something you could address in First Five? Is you know, the question of gender equity and how people are treated? Is it something that's appropriate?
Well, I think teachers are trying to do that, and there's an appropriate way to do that if you have 5-year-olds versus in high school. But I mean, I think teachers are trying to talk about these issues, cultural issues, gender issues, and kids get it. Kids understand, I think, much better than adults do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know a woman who hasn't had something happen to them. I guess the question is whether or not I know a man who hasn't done something he shouldn't have done. But we won't talk about that. We'll talk about other things. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's been over 150 years since Wells Fargo first opened for business. Since then, we've enjoyed your community support, and we're passionate about returning it. Every day, Wells Fargo team members roll up their sleeves and donate their time to organizations and charitable groups throughout the Bay Area. Nationally, we've committed even more. In just the past 2 years alone, we've donated over $70 million to support schools and educational programs. It's a commitment we're proud of. Wells Fargo, the next stage.
Welcome back to The Game. We're joined by Rosanne Foust, President and CEO of SAMCETA, and Kitty Lopez, Executive Director of First Five. You referenced, you hope this is a sea change. Is it? Sometimes my experience is that life doesn't change with singular events, that those may be markers along the way. But do you think this is something that's changed consciousness?
I guess I'm hopeful that it is. I think it can be. I think as people are held accountable and they lose their jobs and they lose their positions, that can move us closer to having a more equitable society. I think when women are in higher positions in all levels, and as I said, I think as young children, young people can be trained and learn through education and through correct modeling of how you conduct yourself in the workplace.
Is there a fundamental change? I guess one of them is the willingness of some women to come forward after years and years, because there's still, even today, we can all think of examples where somebody really is almost punished for bringing this up in ways that belie what the organization may state as its values.
Well, think about Anita Hill. I mean, there's just one clear example. And, you know, I look back, and that was 20-something years ago. And the hearings and what she faced and the questioning. We've come a long way since then, and I think we need to continue having the conversations. But the fact of the matter is, people are losing their jobs. People are losing their positions of power. And frankly, I think that's a good thing. And more of it probably should happen. And it's either way. it's harassment on either side, because there are women in power that also misuse it. So you want to be fair across the playing field. I mean, it's more predominant with men, just because there are more men in positions of power. So the numbers game there.
Both of you said that you think we need to change how we define power. What kind of change do you think needs to take place? What are you talking about?
Well, I'm part of San Mateo County government, and there's a whole investment that I think that the county makes in its people and in training people well and in training supervisors and managers. And I have always taken it as my responsibility to teach people who are managing that I expect a higher level of accountability with you, because you have a higher standard to be a role model for the people that you're trying to work and develop. And so I think there's opportunities to shape that and shape what it really means to be a supervisor and a manager in a company. That it's not just about a bottom line, but it's how you treat people and how you model that and show that as an example of respect.
Is that the issue? I mean, how do men wield power that's different from how women would? Or is there a difference, or is it just that we need to change how men in particular wield power?
I think you have to look at some men that are really good role models. I mean, look at ones that are out there that are titans of companies that don't have this kind of baggage. I mean, I think about Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, just two, that so far there's been nothing.
The trouble is we never know if something could be brewing as we speak, right?
I mean, there's nothing that has been said. Jack Welch at GE. I mean, when you think about leaders in industry, they had men and women following them because of how they conducted themselves, the accountability piece, holding folks to higher standards, and it is leadership positions that are willing to say, no, that's not appropriate, you're out of here. I mean, it is taking those type of, frankly, it's risks.
And I think men also standing up for situations that they know are happening in a workplace environment and saying, no, this is not okay. That sends a clear message to other men and society.
But it isn't just about, when the context we're talking about, it isn't just about sexual harassment.
Right.
It's about being treated fairly. It's about getting opportunities. And so you're really talking about something more fundamental, aren't you, in terms of what has to change?
It's a higher expectation, again, of what it means to be in leadership roles. What does that really mean? It doesn't mean that you just control somebody's behavior, but how do you conduct yourself in an office environment? How do you develop your employees?
And how are you willing to look at people that maybe don't look like you,
right,
and how they operate and how they manage? Because I think those discussions are starting to happen at every company. I mean, we'll tend to gravitate towards people that look like us, have the same educational background, have the same interests. So it's the whole diversity and inclusion piece of this, because it is more than harassment.
And I think you can learn this. It's not something, I mean, some people may be born with that instinctual way.
Yes.
Maybe women have some leading edge because they're the nurturers or they have children and they're taking care of the family. But these are skills you can learn, but you have to devote time to it.
And you have to want to.
Yeah, and it's more than just seeing a harassment video for an hour and then that's it.
Well, the fact is we've all seen those. We've all been required to have harassment prevention training. Why hasn't it worked? Is it?
Because it has to be that personal buy-in, that understanding that you have an unconscious bias. We all do. Unconscious bias is kind of the new buzzword out there, and any of the books and articles about it, you've got to recognize that you have it. If you recognize you have it, you're more willing to, I think, be open to the learning piece.
And I think you have to have conversations about the nuances about harassment. There's a lot of communication that happens that you might miss from just watching a video. So the what if, well, Kitty, what about this? I think you have to have that kind of level of dialogue.
Okay, so then let's get back to the larger question. One of the things that's distinctive about this current discussion is that not all harassment is created equal.
Right.
And how do you find that you know, you've got a state senator, Bob Hertzberg, who loves to hug everybody, and now he's getting in trouble because he invaded somebody's space. And that's a legitimate concern. On the other hand, do you want to tell somebody it's not okay to hug people if that's your nature? How do you find that fine line? How do you find that?
Well, I think you have to be perceptive You have to read body clues. I mean, there are some of us that don't like to hug, or I don't really like hugging people I don't know that well, but people I know well for sure. So it's a matter of being perceptive and intuitive, which sometimes I think people miss those clues.
Yeah.
And I think paying attention and even asking. I'll ask in the workplace, oh, can I touch your scarf? I wanted to feel it. You know, instead of just going ahead and doing something, to be cognizant that other people may have a different way of interpreting what you're doing.
We're running short of time, but so this is an unfair question, but you're talking about fundamental changes in the workplace, and I know a lot of people who wouldn't be comfortable, even as managers, having to have this kind of a conversation with somebody. You know, you shouldn't be doing that.
Then they shouldn't be managing. I mean, really.
I would agree. The uncomfortable conversations are the things you have to have. They're not fun, but they do help.
That's what leadership is.
Well, this wasn't that uncomfortable for me. I hope it was okay for Kitty Lopez and Rosanne Foust. Thank you so much for being with us on this show. We'll have you back to talk more about this as some of the dust settles on this debate. And we'll have you back. Thank you for joining us, and join us next time on The Game.